This is Gensol Engineering, a company that sat at the intersection of renewable energy and the electric vehicle boom. Take a look at the particulate levels in this image. On days like this in Delhi, the concentration of toxic smog often exceeds 20 times the safety limit recommended by the World Health Organization. To address this, public sector financial institutions moved to fund a massive shift in transportation. 663 crore rupees were specifically earmarked for the purchase of thousands of new electric vehicles. But those vehicles never arrived on the streets. Instead, a regulatory audit found that while the debt remained on the books, the cash had exited the expected business cycle entirely. 663 crores should buy a massive fleet. Instead, investigators found empty facilities and a financial trail that went cold before reaching the manufacturing line. This is Gensol Engineering, a company that sat at the intersection of renewable energy and the electric vehicle boom, right up until the moment that growth narrative collided with a 2025 SEBI investigation. By the early 2020s, Tesla's valuation had rewritten the rules for automotive investing. Profitability was often secondary to a single metric: the ability to scale in a clean energy future. The Indian government followed this global trend with aggressive subsidies and tax breaks. In this landscape, any domestic firm combining solar power with electric mobility, like the facility seen here, became an immediate magnet for institutional capital. Fin, our resident AI mascot, has been tracking investor behavior in this sector. Notice how frequently the phrases green energy or electric vehicle appear in the marketing materials. When a narrative is this attractive, the human brain tends to focus on the growth projections and skim over the fine print of the audit reports. During this period, the market wasn't necessarily buying businesses based on their current cash flow. They were buying a stake in an idealized version of what India's cities could eventually look like. Gensol Engineering started in a grounded, asset-heavy sector. They were a standard engineering firm, managing the installation of rooftop solar arrays, like the one seen here. But consulting on solar projects is a slow-growth business. To scale faster, the company pivoted to becoming the primary owner and lessor of the electric vehicles themselves. Fin breaks down the logic. Think of an investor buying an apartment building specifically to collect rent. Now, watch that building morph into a fleet of electric cars. Gensol buys the vehicle, a client leases it, and Gensol collects that monthly payment as recurring revenue. They found their primary client in BluSmart, a ride-hailing startup promising zero cancellations and an all-electric experience. Scaling that promise is extraordinarily expensive. Unlike a digital marketplace app, BluSmart needed thousands of physical cars, maintenance hubs, and charging stations. Gensol positioned itself as the financial engine of that expansion. It was a symbiotic relationship that seemed to align perfectly with national environmental goals. The structure appeared to be a win-win. Gensol raised the institutional debt to buy the cars. BluSmart leased those cars to generate the revenue to pay back the debt. Both Gensol and BluSmart were controlled by the exact same promoters. The people signing checks were essentially receiving them. When the barrier between companies blurs, independent negotiation disappears, making it easier for funds to move internally without third-party oversight. Retail investors often overlook these structural risks. There's an assumption that companies listed on an exchange like the BSE, seen here, are thoroughly vetted by regulators and professional auditors. The combination of a public listing and a narrative about saving the planet can be highly effective at masking vulnerabilities and how a company is actually being run. The first signs of trouble were technical. Credit rating agencies started flagging delayed payments and a tightening of the company's liquidity position. The public follows the news, but the Securities and Exchange Board of India follows the documents. And in early 2025, those documents triggered a full-scale investigation. SEBI released an interim order questioning over 977 crore rupees in loans from institutions like IRETA and PFC. According to the audit, 663 crore of that was strictly designated for vehicle procurement. Investigators alleged the money never bought the cars. Instead, funds were moved through connected shell companies for personal expenditures. It's like being given 10,000 rupees for a school laptop, but routing it through friends to buy a luxury watch and a vacation. These are allegations brought by SEBI in an interim order. The founders have denied any wrongdoing, stating they will contest these findings legally. The very institutional loans that gave the company legitimacy allegedly became the mechanism for diverting funds away from the business itself. The fallout ripples through the entire ecosystem. retail investors lose their savings, and trust in India's renewable energy sector is damaged just when the transition needs capital the most. The regulatory findings were blunt. SEBI alleged that despite being a public company with thousands of shareholders, Gensol was being run as if it were a proprietary firm. Fin's takeaway is about the nature of the market. You can recover from a bad quarter or a shift in the economy, but once a market decides it can no longer trust your governance, the capital usually disappears for good. To avoid these traps, Fin's checklist is simple. 1. Read beyond the press releases. 2. Scrutinize transactions between related companies. 3. Look for proof of actual cash flow, not just growth narratives. A strong industry does not guarantee a strong company. In the end, a compelling story is no substitute for a transparent balance sheet.